Close your eyes.
So is it still flat? Haven't turned in since 2015. Well, that's for each person to come up with their own. I mean, for me, it just doesn't work right now, but it doesn't mean that somebody's not going to find the evidence that I haven't found. It just is weird. That is actually the sun. And the sun is going the opposite direction, right? So we all know what the sun does every day, left to right, left to right. So here, if it's going right to left and it doesn't set, at least it won't set until like, I don't know when it sets here, February. So just every day, the sun just goes around. But it's not fake. That's all I want you guys to know. That is the actual sun.
This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is.
Well, gentlemen, I thought it would be a good idea in this age of free thinking and things like that to bring back the spinning ball Earth.
Spinning ball Earth. Spinning ball Earth.
Recently, a wealthy globe Earth proponent named Will Duffy launched a campaign dubbed The Final Experiment, which he claims will finally settle the globe versus flat Earth debate forever. The results of this experiment are allegedly so conclusive that once conducted and completed, all flat earthers will be forced to concede and admit defeat. So what is Will's brilliant idea? What is his ingenious experiment to finally silence all globe skepticism? Invite 12 flat Earth YouTubers and 12 globe Earth YouTubers to Antarctica in December to see if there's a midnight sun. In other words, the final experiment is not an experiment, and not even a demonstration, but merely an observation. In typical globe defender strawman fashion, Will is conflating a celestial observation with our terrestrial foundation. He's claiming that the motion of a light in the sky overhead somehow gives proof of the shape of the ground underfoot. In reality, the existence of a midnight sun in Antarctica no more proves the globe than the non-existence of a midnight sun in Antarctica proves the flat Earth. It's tantamount to inviting a contractor to measure the dimensions of your floor space, and instead of taking measurements of the floor, he climbs a ladder and starts measuring the recessed lighting in the ceiling. Then, after doing some calculations and extrapolations based on his ceiling lighting measurements, he tells you definitively that your floor is curved. The only reason this strawman argument even has any legs to stand on are because a couple suspicious, shilly, so-called flat earthers who I have repeatedly called out as disinformation agents, like Jeran from Jeranism, have claimed that they believe a midnight sun in Antarctica somehow does prove the globe. In a recent interview with Will Duffy, Jeran explicitly stated that if there is a midnight sun in Antarctica, then that is evidence for the globe, and a big problem for flat Earth. In reality, this is not a problem for flat Earth at all, nor is it evidence of a globe. The only reason flat earthers have claimed a midnight sun likely doesn't exist in Antarctica is because of how many clearly fake videos have been made claiming to show a 24-hour sun in the south. It's difficult to find any clearly legitimate videos of the midnight sun in Antarctica, whereas in the Arctic there are countless clearly genuine videos of the phenomenon. Whether or not there is an Antarctic midnight sun, still water is always level, the horizon is always flat, and there is never any measurable curvature. The Earth remains a level plane, regardless of any solar observations. The motion of a light in the sky overhead cannot possibly prove the shape of the ground underfoot. Besides, there are geocentric flat Earth models like that presented by Lady Blunt and Albert Smith in their book Zetetic Astronomy, which fully account for an Antarctic midnight sun. In their model, the sun follows a northern and southern circuit in such a manner as to allow for a midnight sun phenomenon in both the Arctic and Antarctic. Others have speculated that reflections or projections off a dome firmament could produce a midnight sun effect in the Antarctic, and others still have speculated about a sun simulator technology which can effectively create a second sun. I'm personally quite skeptical that there exists a 24-hour circling sun visible in Antarctica, but regardless of whether there is or not, has no bearing on the shape of the Earth. Over a century ago, when these same claims were brought to the flat earthers of the Universal Zetetic Society in 1904, President Lady Blunt responded, "We have made inquiries from various persons, and we find that the longest day in any place further south than the Tropic of Capricorn increases in length as the latitude increases, or distance south of the observer. It follows, therefore, logically, that if we were to go further and further south, the longest day would keep on increasing until it filled the whole of 24 hours. Then, of course, the midnight sun might be seen. Testimony has now been given that it has been seen, and this testimony has been admitted in Zetetic literature, thus proving, speaking generally, that Zetetics are willing to learn and admit of known facts. Whether we can explain these facts is another question. But as we have before intimated, that whatever further facts we may find, which are proved to be real facts and not fancies, we shall admit. But while admitting them to be true Zetetics, will never give up their primary fact, that the surface of all still water is level, and that the earth, or land portion of the world, therefore, a plane.
And like, I would put it to you like this. If there's a dome, if we're in an enclosed system, does that not mean that there are a whole lot of variables that we don't know about that could affect the lights in the ceiling?
Yeah, I can grant that.
The way they're going to spin the results of the 24 hours on the globe side, I'm not saying the flat earth side will be that. I think we're actually going to get evidence for flat earth. I think it's going to turn out in our favor. I can already kind of see how that's happening. The sun seemed to be higher in the sky than the globe predicted when they got down there. I even think that just a minute earlier when they confirmed it, that it seemed like it was still higher in the sky than it should have been, according to the globe predictions as far as the elevation angle of it. I could be wrong about that, but it doesn't matter because I can show it happening in this model. And from what I'm seeing of the sun in their footage, it's matching what I see when I do it in here. Now, that to me is just cool. So, flat Earth's not dead, people. You can't kill the truth. And I don't care what anybody says, it doesn't falsify the Gleason's map either, because with this kind of setup, put the Gleason's map under there, it works just fine. Okay, so where I'm at now is, I will move the camera back in a minute and show, but I have added my superfluid ceiling in, and you can see this light way back here on the edge of the superfluid ceiling. I'm gonna zoom in on that, and then I'm gonna move the sun clockwise around basically Capricorn, and show you that with the superfluid ceiling inside of the dome, the apparent 24-hour sun does happen. There is no merger. You don't see two suns, you'd be too far away. And you, again, because of the superfluid ceiling and the dome and the reflectivity and what that causes, everybody only sees one sun no matter where they're at. So there is no such thing as seeing two suns in the sense of how people try to use that as an excuse to why this wouldn't work, because that would happen. That's just not understanding the vastness of the realm and how the sky is presenting the light. It would not happen. It doesn't happen. You're about to see it here. Kind of zoom in. Oh crap. Let me zoom in better than that. So now I'm zoomed all the way in. You see the light moving. And when I move around Capricorn, See, you get that apparent counterclockwise motion. 24-hour sun. Now, if I could get, once I get the superfluid built better and do the whole dome setup better, I think it's going to work even better than this. But you can clearly see a 24-hour sun, and right there, so that's west. This is coming back around south. That's east, coming back around north and west and back around south. That would be the midnight sun rising in the east, coming around behind the camera in the north, west, south. So you can clearly see it works. And you don't even see the source sun. You only see that apparent sun. And you can clearly see it's going west, back around south, east, north behind the camera, west, furthest point south, east, north, well that's east, north around the back of the camera, west, south, east, north around the back of the camera, west, south, midnight sun, east. It does work in this model, in this setup. So you can clearly see, you see no merger of the sun, and you see how it's going east. This would be north behind the camera, west, south, east, north, west, south, east, north, west, south. Clearly see it. When you're in that zone, that's all you see. It's just that apparent sun. Everybody gets their own apparent sun by the way this toroidal shell with the super reflective Atmos dome setup that we have. So the 24-hour sun does work. Now the cool thing is, this is an apparent position. So see, I'm moving the camera around and look, you still see it. Yeah, there it is. So anyway, you can see it's an apparent thing no matter where I move the camera. It's hard to move the camera and do the light and everything all at once. You can clearly see no matter where, I'm not moving the light, I'm just moving the camera. It's an apparent position. And that is west, south, east, north behind the camera, west, south, midnight sun, east, north behind the camera. You can clearly see in this system, it works just fine. Now what I'm showing you is the setup itself. So I have my Mimic superfluid ceiling, which is just a two-way mirror mounted in the top with magnets. Again, this is not how I think it is exactly, but it's close enough to give us an idea of what's happening. I'm gonna get some more stuff to modify and make this better, especially more toroidal-like, so, and see what all I can learn from that. But you can see I've got the two-way mirror. And then right now I've even got the star field projected in. And what's interesting is you can already see that counter rotation, counter rotation view. And when I do like long exposures of this in the dark, you can't even see the two-way mirror that would represent our superfluid ceiling and our second Gaussian surface that allows for horizontal lines of equipotential voltage, and also aids in the observed celestial phenomena that we see. So I use that two-way mirror mounted in the top. I'd really like to have it much lower. I think it's way too high personally as far as being closer to scale and what I'm trying to show, but it works just fine. You saw how it accounts for the 24-hour sun and gives you an apparent southern sun no matter where you're at. And if once I'm able to get this to a larger scale and put the camera inside, you're gonna see that from that view, the sun would stay kind of low moving horizontally around the horizon the whole time it's visible as well. So that's another question to get. Well, how do you explain it staying low on the horizon the whole time? Well, it's just optical. And then you look from the inside, you can see on the inside of the two-way mirror, it's blue, so it kind of represents the sky very well. It also dulls the luminaries in the model a bit because it's just a protective coating, but I kind of like it on there, so I've left it on there. And I'm gonna get a couple more and just do different things, different ways, have one completely without it. But I think it works really well in showing how our sky works. And you can see my moon map model with my superfluid ceiling, star field projected in the top, and you just saw how I accomplished the 24-hour apparent sun that is apparent to any camera or viewer position across the realm. It does work in the flat earth model. These are all assumptions based on biblical cosmology. And, you know, you can keep saying it doesn't work and nobody's showing you that it can work. And, you know, that's fine. That's just denial though, because it is being shown how it works. And it's only going to get better and better and more defined with time, because we as flat earthers, biblical cosmologists, whatever people want to identify as in this truther movement, we have the ability to go back to the drawing board and theorize and come up with different ideas and test different things, whereas the globe model doesn't have that freedom. So we're not backtracking, we're just showing you how the 24-hour sun works in our model, and it works perfectly. Hope everybody enjoys this. And I'm gonna do some more, but I was inspired to do this tonight just because I kind of had this set up for a conversation earlier and haven't done it in a while. And I'm gonna be doing some more star trail stuff like this as well. So this is how I create the star trails and how it spreads them out across the north. So like you see, it's all projected up, but when you come over the top, you just get that single star field stretched across the whole realm, which also fits scripture where he says he stretches the north across the empty places. So, and I think when we look up, we're looking into the heavens and we're seeing what's going on in the heavens above us, near the throne room or around the throne room or below it, whatever people want to say. But I definitely think we're just watching what's going on in the heavenly realm. So very cool. Okay, so I'm gonna try to explain star trails again on the flat earth, because people want to say things like, well, why do we see different constellations in the south and the north if there's only a northern star field? Well, from this position, it looks like a northern star field. It looks like it's just over the north and that's it. But that's not the case. And if you look up, you can see how I'm projecting it in. So I'm just projecting it onto the ceiling, and then the dome is showing it. And you can see the projector back there between the telescopes. So we have this super reflective ceiling above us, a superfluid layer and a dome. The dome is most likely crystalline of some sort. The superfluid ceiling acts like a two-way mirror. And that's what gives us this star trail phenomenon of the Arctic motion and the anti-arctic motion of the luminaries. So again, you see projecting it into the ceiling here, and the projector's down there. But when I come up from above and look down, you can clearly see that same star field covers the entire realm. So it's not just a northern star field. And what you're seeing is at the equator, you get this converging and diverging zone of arc and anti-arc on either side of the equator. And that's caused by the super reflective mirror type dome
and superfluid sealing that is also acting as a two-way mirror. So it's because of that that we have the northern and southern star trails, and we have different stars in the north and in the south. However, we do see the same constellations in the north and south at times, depending on the time of year, like Orion, for example. So you're seeing clearly, the star field covers the entire realm. It's projected in from the ceiling. You come back and you look at it from here, zoom back in, and you see it looks like a single star field. Rotating one direction. The interesting thing is when you come in, you get that anti-rotation effect. So you see how it looks like it's rotating opposite in the south as it is in the north. When you come in close, you get that anti-rotation. But you saw it's one star field stretched across the entire realm, which also fits scripture because it says he stretches the north out over the empty places. And then the super reflective mirror dome and mirror sky is also in scripture, where he talks about how it's like a cast metal mirror or a bronze mirror that reflects heat or a molten looking glass. All of that would do this. All of those things, all of those descriptions cause this phenomenon. So when we test what the scriptures say about our sky, we actually see that the phenomenon that we observe in real life fit that modeling. You can say it doesn't, but I'm showing you that it does. The interesting thing is when you come up here and you see that rotation and anti-rotation, see how it follows no matter where you go? That's following is the southern part of the sky. So it is an apparent thing caused by the super reflective sky, the mirror sky. The same thing goes for the 24-hour sun. So you can clearly see, looks like one star field rotating in the dome. It's actually pretty simple. It's not that complicated, not that difficult, but it is what's causing the phenomenon. And if you're far enough south at the right time of year, you're gonna see the sun and even the moon at certain times for 24 hours. It's just the way the dome manipulates the light.
Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Little darling, their smiles return into their faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, sun,
this is cool. I have projected Saturn and Jupiter in. And if you look, it looks like they are below my superfluid ceiling. They literally look like floating orbs beneath the superfluid ceiling. The Great Rift right there too, that's in that projection with Saturn. And another Great Rift in the projection with Jupiter. The stars look like you're looking into a field of stars. It's so cool, so wild. And you can clearly see it's all above. It's actually all above, but it looks like it's somehow holographically projected beneath. It's so cool. I mean, like, you can see on the ceiling there, on the ceiling. Come here though, and they look like they're inside holograms beneath the superfluid ceiling. Now that I did not expect. That is beyond cool. You see, it looks like when you come up, you start to come up, you can see how they move up, but come down and that superfluid ceiling almost disappears where you can't even see it. Wild, just completely wild. What I've done is I pulled up the flat Earth model that shows how the sun is giving us an apparent position based off of our position on the plane. And because our eyes see in a small dome, we do have a visual perspective sky dome created by our eyes that is smaller than the celestial dome itself. So the celestial dome and the smaller visual perspective sky dome that our eyes give us are responsible for what the lights in the ceiling are doing. Regardless, the lights in the ceiling do not prove the floor beneath your feet being spherical. We can measure the floor as level. We cannot measure the ceiling. However, the celestial dome and our visual perspective are the answer to the lights in the sky. As you can see here, you can get, when I move the sun around the Tropic of Capricorn, you can see in the position where the final experiment, which is really just an observation, will take place, you get a counterclockwise 24-hour sun. So this was the reason I had the small glass dome in there to begin with, because we do see this way. Our eyes do create a smaller visual dome inside of the larger dome. And every person has an apparent view to the sun, not an actual physical view of its exact location. We all have an apparent view to its location. And everybody knows this because at any given time, let's say there's 3 different people standing on this plane watching the sun at different locations. You've got one person watching it rise, one person watching it set, and another person with it directly at apex above them. All 3 people are seeing the same apparent sun in different apparent positions. So we know for a fact the sun has an apparent position, not a physical position to our visual perspective. And the smaller sky dome created by the dome view that our eyes create inside of the celestial dome is what is causing the phenomenon of the apparent counterclockwise sun that far south during their summer solstice, which is our winter solstice here in the north. So that's what's responsible for the apparent 24-hour counterclockwise sun that far south that time of year. Is the combination of the celestial dome and our sky dome that our eyes create, our personal perspective, our personal sky dome that our eyes create, giving us an apparent view of the sun. This is the reason for the 24-hour sun. If it happens, this is the reason for it right here. This is why it's happening. Now, in my demonstration, I knew from the very beginning correct, because the direction I was moving the source flashlight that represented the sun was clockwise around the north, whereas the apparent flashlight sun was moving the opposite direction of the source flashlight sun. And if the source flashlight sun was moving clockwise and the apparent flashlight sun was moving opposite to clockwise, there's only one opposite to clockwise, which is counterclockwise. This has been it's been the hardest version of perspective for me to tackle within the flat earth model, but this explains it perfectly. And I'm gonna do a demonstration here in a minute with a better, more to scale, personal perspective sky dome inside of the larger dome, and show you that it is giving you this exact same phenomena that you're seeing in this animated model. So stay tuned, that's coming. All these videos will be attached together. Now what I've done is I've added the small acrylic dome back in, except this time I bought a hollowed out acrylic dome to mimic the visual sky dome that we have as individuals, dependent upon where we're standing on the realm, the plane of Earth. So this small acrylic dome represents the sky as our eyes present the sky to us. We know that when we walk outside, our eyes create a smaller sky dome above us, because we can't see the whole sky at any given point, no matter where we're at. It's just too big for us to see. So our eyes create a small perspective sky dome in which we view the sky grid above us. So the acrylic dome is added back in. It is correct. It does mimic what we would see based on the claims of flat Earth. However, it does cause a bunch of reflections that we would not see, because I'm basically playing with Legos here. I'm playing with plastic acrylic domes over a Gleason's map, which I don't believe the Gleason's map is accurate. I don't think we know. We don't have an accurate map for either side. We know this. It can be demonstrated and proven through documents and data and buoys and boats and all kinds of different stuff. So we know for a fact we don't have an accurate map. So arguing about the map is ridiculous. Now, when I move this sun, you can see right now, you can see these four reflections, how there's four. Well, that's because we're from the outside looking in, and normally you would only see two anyway, because the two that the small acrylic dome is causing would not happen in reality, because there's not a physical dome in reality where the small acrylic dome is. That is just the way our eyes perceive the sky from that position. So two, though, are accurate. You would get two sources like that for the sun inside our realm. Now, from the inside, they would almost always be perfectly aligned where you could never see them. However, on occasion, we are able to see two. NASA knows about it. I'm going to attach a video from Crow 777 explaining the two suns and how he's captured them. He knows that others have captured them. I've seen others capture them. I have personally captured what I thought could possibly be a second sun. However, I've only done it once, or I think maybe twice now. And because I haven't been able to do it a bunch and repeat it, then I've just kept it quiet and been very skeptical of it. However, I do, and I have demonstrated it in demonstrations how it's possible as well. But regardless, the celestial dome is the answer. It's the answer to the two suns. It's the answer to the sun. It's the answer to the lights in the ceiling and how they operate differently in the northern part of the realm and southern part of the realm. Like the star trails are counterclockwise in the north. They are clockwise in the south. The sun is clockwise in the north. It seems to be counterclockwise in the south at certain times of the year. So this is what explains the phenomena. Now, I don't think it's a reflection. I think it's actually just an apparent location of the sun. It's just an apparent location. And as I move, you're going to see those represent what you're looking at in Antarctica. And you see how they wrap around the south, rise in from the east, go behind the camera, come back around to the west, to the south, back to the east where they rise up, wrap around behind the camera. So I'm demonstrating how this works. You can say it doesn't all you want. I've known from the beginning that if I'm moving the source light clockwise and the apparent light is moving counter to that, then it has to be moving counterclockwise. There's only one opposite to clockwise, and that's counterclockwise. So you see it working just fine. From inside, in that position, we're only gonna see one. We're only gonna see one. We're gonna see one sun, and you see exactly how it would happen. You're seeing exactly what just happened in the animation that that you watched right before this in my explanation with the computer animation of it. It does work. Like it's obviously working. So for someone like Will Duffy or any globe proponent to make a claim that no flat earther has said prior to 2024 that it's possible for a 24-hour sun to work in Antarctica is just disingenuous and dishonest, in my opinion. Because anybody who's been a flat earther for any period of time, I've been a flat earther for over a decade now, and I've always heard from the very beginning that the lights in the ceiling don't determine the floor beneath our feet. I've always heard that. The lights in the ceiling don't determine the floor beneath our feet. And trying to cling to the one thing you don't think flat earthers have a good answer for while ignoring all of the stuff that you don't have good answers for is just dishonest. It's intellectually dishonest. And to think that just because you witness something that flat earthers don't have a good answer for or didn't have a good answer for, that all of a sudden trumps all the evidence and boom, we live on a globe again. That is just ignorant, straight up ignorant.
And like, I would put it to you like this. If there's a dome, if we're in an enclosed system, does that not mean that there are a whole lot of variables that we don't know about that could affect the lights in the ceiling?
Yeah, I can grant that.
Fact of the immobility of the Earth has an immense advantage over the theory of the rotation, in that it can positively be recognized as such, and it can safely be said that if the Earth cannot be seen to move, there are 100 chances in 100 that it does not do so. So trust your eyes and trust your experience. Trust your feeling, trust your intuition. Look out, see the horizon, flat. Feel for yourself. You're not moving. Just sit still. not spinning around an axis at 1,000 miles per hour, rotating around the sun at 67,000 miles per hour, spiraling around the galaxy at 500,000 miles per hour, and shooting off from a Big Bang at 67 million miles per hour. You're not. You're motionless. You're just sitting there. Just sit still. What does that even mean, sit still? You think you could sit still with all those motions? Does it feel like you're moving? Feel that? Same thing you've always felt? Nothing? Ever? Nobody's ever felt movement. Nobody's ever seen the earth move. Nobody's ever seen the earth curve. Maybe you just got fooled by some masons. Mark Twain said, "It's easier to fool people than to convince them they've been fooled." That's why it's so hard to convince you you've been fooled.
Open the door.
You can't possibly believe that you and the rest of the world could have been lied to and deceived by these masons. The oldest and largest secret society in the world, over 5 million members, all over the world, existing for hundreds of years. But not you, right? They couldn't fool you. Of course you're spinning around. Of course you are. That's what they told you in school. They don't lie to you in school.